Season number 7 of the Miami Marlins franchise is in the books, and we are back in the postseason for a 5th consecutive year with our 3rd straight division title. Our team was outstanding after the All-Star break, and through the first half of the season, we were really shaky. We started the year 45-40, number 3 wild card, half a game ahead of the Dodgers going into the month of July, and since then, we have dominated. 52-25 over the last 3 months. I would guess that's by far the best record in baseball, finishing with the number 1 seed in the National League and the 2nd best record overall, only trailing the Twins, who of course we beat last year in the World Series. Despite the fact that our team played so well though last episode, that doesn't mean it was all sunshine and rainbows, as we got hit hard by the injury bug. Adolfo Jimenez, the rookie, strained pec. He's going to be out for the start of the playoffs. Kevin Alcantara, torn calf. It's going to be 50-50 whether he comes off the injured list in time for the NLDS. Ariel Amador, torn MCL. 3rd straight year he's ended with a season-ending injury. And then, of course, the big one, Jazz Chisholm tore his Achilles in July, a week before the trade deadline. And obviously this sucks because Jazz might be our most important player. You could argue Woody Landry and Edward Cabrera might be a little bit better, but in terms of importance, it's hard to argue against the value that Jazz brings this team on both offense and defense. As for the rest of the guys, we had some players who, of course, were really good. Woody Landry was outstanding this year. He finished in 2nd for the MVP, only trailing O'Neal Cruz, who 100% deserved it. Those numbers are ridiculous. Landry did win the batting title. He had the best batting average amongst qualified hitters in all of baseball, National League and American League. Woody clearly changed his approach in the offseason to focus more on contact, and it really limited his power early in the season. He only had 5 home runs through the first 2 months, but he's had 35 since the start of June, and I think 28 since the All-Star break. Jacob Berry is another guy who I think deserves a ton of credit because he's played so well as of recent. Other than Woody Landry and Edward Cabrera, the highest WAR of any player on the roster was Jacob Berry. We added Vidal Brujan at the trade deadline directly due to the injury of Jazz Chisholm. And then the other guys like Brian De La Cruz had a great year. Sanchez, Melendez, James Wood played well. As for the pitching, of course, Edward Cabrera, fantastic. The rest of our pitching rotation's been a little up and down, but we've always had Cabrera, who we've been able to rely on. When he won his first Cy Young in 2027, the thing that impressed me most was some of his dominant starts. That was the year he had the no-hitter. Last year, I feel like it was more about this consistency. 30 out of 33 starts were quality starts, and then this year I feel like he combined the two. He put up career best numbers in pretty much every category, 9 complete games and 8 complete game shutouts, so pretty much around 30% of his starts he went the entire way and got a shutout. He had a WAR of 7, which, to put that in perspective, the next best WAR amongst pitchers in all of baseball was 4.5. We added Matthew Liberatore from the Cardinals at the trade deadline to add another lefty. Casey Mize played really well down the stretch, and then the bullpen was really solid as well. We have to decide who's going to be on the playoff roster, so we're going to send down 3 guys. And of course, Kevin Alcantara's status is in question, whether or not they'll let us put him on. So Tobias Starr, Ronald Andino, and Junior Caminero will be sent down. The most notable addition will be Ziggy Zidane, who will stay on the roster despite only playing a few games late in the year. He has 15 big league at-bats, but he might be the last guy off if we're allowed to play Kevin Alcantara. So as you can see by the bracket, we will play against the Mets in the first round. They beat the Braves in 3 games in the wild card. They lost the first one, but were able to win the last 2, only allowing 3 runs across the 2 games. So for a 2nd straight year, it'll be the Mets who we face off against in the NLDS. The Mets have an interesting roster, and they've added some familiar faces. Former Marlin Alec Bohm is the 3rd baseman. He was a platoon guy for most of the year, but he's a full-time starter now. Wasn't as bad as he was last year, which isn't really much of a bar. They've added some other young guys as well. They did lose some solid veterans like Brandon Nimmo. And then the pitching is pretty much the same as what it's been. Ryan Stevenson, the former number 1 overall pick out of Fresno State, is definitely the guy to watch. He's been really good for 3 years. This season in particular really put it up to another level. I don't know how he has a career WAR of only 5. He's been a really good player for quite some time. The Mets are looking for revenge, as now we will figure out the question, will Kevin Alcantara be available to play? The answer is no. He missed out by 1 day. Had the start of the NLDS been a day later, he would have been off the injured list and on the postseason roster. But now, we will not have him eligible until the NLCS, which, if we make it there, would theoretically be in the next episode. Today, we're going to get through the entirety of the NLDS, and we're going to structure things a little bit differently, being that we're going through this season quickly. And as you can see, we're only doing this one postseason series through the entire episode. So we're going to do a lot of quick managing. And in elimination games and in big moments, we're going to be hopping in. But for like game one, we are mostly going to stay in quick manage. Edward Cabrera, of course, getting the start. 3 consecutive Cy Youngs. He has a big track record of postseason success. Looking to continue that today. Let's see what the Mets can do as they get an early walk. And another runner. And another runner. The bases are loaded with nobody out. What a great start. Alvarez drives in 3 with a double. Marsh adds another run, and it's 4-0 after the top of the first inning. This is not the Edward Cabrera we know and love. What is happening? We're trying to get some runs together against Coco Pozo, but it's not happening. The Mets are getting more guys on. Second and third, they get a 2-run double by Yoan Moncada, and it's now 6-0. Edward, what is going on? We would add a run in the third with an RBI double from Isaac Stu, but we still trail 6-1. Things are looking rough. Cabrera, as you can see, is still in the game. He's our ace. We trust him even though it's been bad, and he gets through the 5th inning. But this deficit really is not changing. We'll make a pitching switch moving into the 6th. Joe Shearer has been fantastic over the last 2 years. Hopefully he can keep the float kind of steady because it is sinking fast. We get 2 early walks. Jesus Sanchez gets a single, but Stu is thrown out. The bases are loaded for James Wood, and he strikes out. Fittingly, we leave them loaded. Oddly enough, both teams have the same amount of hits. 5. The difference is the Mets got their hits in spurts, and they were able to get a lot of runs out of it as we move into the 8th. Into the game for Shearer will be the lefty Keegan Aiken. We're going to try to save our elite receivers, knowing that this game's probably out of reach as Moncada drives in a run. We're going to yank Aiken now and look to bring in Andres Vina with 2 on, and he gets out of the inning. As for the Mets, Coco Pozo's still in the game. He's going to look to take it the entire way. Can he get the complete game in the 9th inning? Short answer, no. 2-run homer by Vidal Brujan, so Pozo gets yanked. It might not matter, though. Diego Rodriguez will, in fact, finish it off as the Mets win Game 1 of the NLDS 7-3. Our last regular season game of the year against the Mets, we won 16-15. Coco Pozo was the starter. He allowed 7 runs. But, of course, today, in the game that matters, he goes nearly the entire way, 8 2/3, allowing 3. And more importantly for the Mets, getting the win. The offense wasn't, like, abysmal, but I wouldn't say it was good either. We had more hits than the Mets. Our offense got guys on at the same rate that they did, but they capitalized early, mashing off of Edward Cabrera in the early stages of this game. Really rough start for Cabrera, one of his worst of the year. I will say I'm not going to be overly worried about Cabrera because last year in Game 1 of the NLDS against the Mets, he struggled and we lost. And obviously, things ended up fine. Cabrera started 5 more times last year in the postseason, and he got the win in all 5 of those games. I am a little bit worried, though, if we'll even get Cabrera another start, though. Assuming he pitches Game 5, which is probably what he would be projected to do, we've got to win 2 of 3 without him, using some younger pitchers who have not a lot of postseason success. Kevin Alcantara is healthy, but again, we cannot take him off of the injured list and onto the postseason roster until the 2nd round, as that'll bring us into Game 2. Now, I am confident in this team's ability to come back. We played in a lot of elimination games last year, and we won all of them. Our team has a great history of playing well when the lights are the brightest. The thing that I'm concerned about, though, is one of the teams who we came back against last year was the Mets. They've been in this situation where they've had a lead in the playoffs in the past against us and blew it. So you better believe they're going to be more prepared second time around. Casey Mize is going to get the start in Game 2. Casey Mize was our starter in the 16-15 game. He allowed 7 innings in 1 1/3 innings. So hopefully he can rebound after his last start was a disaster. He would retire the side in the top of the 1st inning. Mike Soroka is getting the start for the Mets. He's looking pretty strong so far. Soroka, the old man of the pitching staff, as Jacob Berry is doubled up. The Mets First one's on the board here in the third with a home run by J.J. Bleday, a former top 5 pick by the Marlins, ironically. I think he was in the same draft as Casey Mize, and he homers against his former team. De La Cruz with a hit, can't do anything there as the Mets add to their lead. Solo homer for Bobby Witt Jr., and it's 2-0. So now the offense has got to pick it up. We do drive in a run. It's an RBI from MJ Melendez. He brings in Jesus Sanchez, making it 2-1. So we allow a run in the fourth, but we get one back. Runners on the corners now. We will take out Mize, bringing in Duvall, and that proves to be a mistake. Bobby Witt Jr., 3-run homer, and the Mets lead it 5-1. Our season is crumbling right in front of our eyes. As we move into the sixth inning now, with a lot of damage control to do, we're going to bring Joe Shearer into the game, hoping, again, he can keep the boat upright, because right now we're looking like the Titanic, the way we might be sinking. Into the seventh now, same score. Manny Margot drives in a run off of the double. Bobby Witt looks to drive in a run off of the single, but he's thrown out. Still 6-1. Soroka is still in the game, by the way. He's finally taken out, replaced by Rodriguez. 6 2/3 for Soroka, only allowing 1 run as Andres Vina comes into the game. Really doesn't look like we're going to see any changes here. But now we're getting some base runners. 2 on, 1 away for Jesus Sanchez. He's out. MJ Melendez now singles, and the bases are loaded. Dear God, I think we're going to hop in here. It's Jacob Berry up at the plate, a guy with a lot of postseason success throughout his career. Lines it into left center, and it's caught. The Marlins leave him loaded. Who would have thought? That was our opportunity to get back in the game, and now going into the ninth inning, down by 5, things are not looking good. Andres Vina will stay in the game as he gets through the inning. Dominic Hamill will look to close it out for the Mets, and Khalil Watson gets a triple. De La Cruz lines out, and that'll do it. The Mets win it 6-1, and with that, the New York Mets win both games in Miami. They take a 2-0 series lead, and now we're feeling the pressure. We've got to win 3 in a row, a sweep essentially. 2 of those games, of course, will be in New York, and our next 2 projected starting pitchers are 2 guys who have not gotten a lot of postseason playing time. Overall, another rough game, and similarly, we have the same amount of hits as them, 10. We have more hits than them across the first 2 games, but we're being outscored 13-3. The lack of clutch hitting, which has been an issue with this team since the first episode of the series, is catching back up to us, and that'll bring us into Game 3 in New York. Matthew Liberatore is on the mound, coming from the Cardinals, a team who historically is in the playoffs a lot, but throughout the 2020s in this series, the Cubs have been the ones who have owned that division, and so Liberatore hasn't really pitched a whole lot in the playoffs. Well, now we are handing our season into his left arm here on the road at Citi Field. If we lose this game, the dream's over, season's done. We're still going to quick manage, but I'm going to be hopping in a lot more. In any situations where there's runners on base or 2 outs and there's a big at-bat or a big inning, we're going to hop in and play the moment. The Mets have outscored us 13-3 in the first 2 games at home, despite the fact that we have out-hit them. Our offense needs to show up with Max Butterbaugh, the talented righty, on the mound for the New York Mets. Let's get this game started and hopefully start with a bang as Woody Landry draws a walk. Sanchez single. Melendez now. He's got a nice opportunity with 2 on and 2 away, and because of that, we're going to hop in the game. Full count. Draws a walk. The bases are loaded. God, why? And it's Jacob Berry, who had the bases loaded opportunity in the last game, didn't come up clutch, looking to change the narrative. Base hit. 1 run scores and only 1. The Marlins on top 1-0. This is the first time in any of the playoff games this year that we have had the lead. James Wood now. Sharp line at a third. Scooped up by Bohm. He sends it to second. So the Marlins leave the bases loaded, of course. But we do score. And it's 1-0. So Matthew Liberatore already has some early run support. Had a good season with us in St. Louis, 3.4 ERA. I'm excited about him being a long-term piece of the rotation. He's got 3 more years of team control as he gets through the inning pretty easily, and we move into the second now. Brandon Lau gets the ball rolling with a double. That would be followed up by a single from Leody Taveras. Big at bat for Lindor, and he doubles. Both score. and it's 2-1. In hindsight, I wish I hopped in there. That was obviously a pretty big moment. But look at this! MJ Melendez, 3-run homer, and the Marlins lead 4-2. Now there's 2 runners in scoring position with a single by Wood and a double by Brujan, and a huge opportunity for Khalil Watson. Grounds it to second. It looks like the Marlins won't add any more. They leave 2 more runners on base. Common theme of this postseason series, but we score 3 with a homer by MJ Melendez, who I think is hitting close to 700 in this playoff series. He's like the only guy who's legitimately stepped up, and the Marlins lead 4-2. It appears the offense has decided to play today with 4 runs and 7 hits already. Butterball is getting tired as Stu gets a single. Landry drives him in with a double. Butterball's yanked for Edgar Cosmo. Look at the 3, 4, 5 hitters. They have reached base on all 8 at-bats today as Sanchez gets to second with an error. Melendez drives in a run with a sac fly, and it's now 6-2. The middle of the order is dominant for this Marlins team right now. 6-2 here in the bottom of the 5th. Liberatore allows a couple early hits to Lindor and Blade. Margot advances them. Bohm gets a sac fly, and that'll bring up Bobby Witt Jr. We're going to hop in the game here. So Witt is a runner on second with 2 away. 6-3 score as he swings and misses at the sweeping curve. Liberatore allows a run, but no further damage. I think this will probably be it for him. 5 innings, 3 earned. Nothing spectacular, but lucky for him, he's gotten plenty of run support today as we move into the top of the 6th. Top of the order up for the Marlins. De La Cruz 0 for 4 as Stu draws a walk. Landry with a 2-run homer. What a day for Woody. Sanchez makes it back-to-back, and it's now 9-3 for the Marlins. Prince Lindstrom comes in the game as he allows a double to Melendez. The 3, 4, 5 hitters have gotten out once today, and that one out, Sanchez reached base because of an error anyway. James Wood drives in a run. It's now 10-3. What a showing by the offense as we're going to bring Max Meyer in the game. I guess this kind of spoils our hand on what we're going to do in Game 4, but I don't really want to use any of our main relievers here. I want to keep their energy as high as possible because we're going to need them for Game 4 and hopefully beyond. 2-run homer by MJ Melendez. He is insane. It's now 12-3. Melendez has 2 homers today. I don't know how many runs he's driven in. It's a lot. Edwin Diaz is in the game, mainly because the Mets are pretty much out of relievers. Melendez brings in another guy home. It's 13-3. Bases are loaded, and the Mets got out of it as Moncada hits a homer. Is this the dagger? Interestingly, the game put Meyer out, and they brought in Duvall. At first, I was very confused because everything here should be on manual, but then I realized it's probably because Meyer got hurt. Duvall finishes out the game, and we win 13-4. Great showing by the offense. Unfortunately, the Meyer injury might cloud things a little bit, but we'll talk about that later. First, we got to check out this box score. We needed our offense to step up, and boy, they did. We had an elimination game last year at Citi Field where we scored, 17 runs? And now here we score 13 with 18 hits. I think the 3, 4, 5 guys in the lineup deserve all the credit. Woody Landry, Jesus Sanchez, and MJ Melendez. My God, were they incredible. Of our 13 runs, they were all scored by only 4 guys. Stu scored 3 times. He went 1 for 3 with 3 walks and obviously 3 runs. Woody Landry, 3 for 5, homer, walk, and he scored all 4 times he reached base. Jesus Sanchez, 4 for 5 with a walk, solo homer. He scored 3 times. MJ Melendez, 4 for 4, a walk, a sac fly, 2 homers, 3 runs, and 7 RBIs. He drove in 7 guys. That's absurd. Of Melendez's 12 postseason at-bats, he has 9 hits. He has more than doubled the amount of RBIs as he has plate appearances where he's gotten out. That's absurd. I get it's only 3 games, but still. Max Meyer pulls a hamstring. He's going to be hurt for a week or 2, and we can replace him with a player of a similar position to the postseason roster. Does center field count as similar enough? Unfortunately, not. I figured it wouldn't, so we're going to have Tobias Starr move up to the postseason roster to replace him. The earliest I think we see Meyer again is the World Series, but obviously, again, we've got to get there first. Shout out to Melendez, though. 750, 12 at-bats, 2 homers, 8 RBIs. He nearly has a full point of WAR in just 3 games. Yet we're still trailing in the series 2-1. And we've still got to win 2 games in a row. That game 3 gives us a ton of momentum, I feel like. The offense is feeling good, but we're still trailing. The Mets are still in the power position, and they have, in my opinion, their best pitcher, Ryan Stevenson, another lefty, on the mound here in game 4. Not to mention it's raining, which I guess neutralizes things a little bit, which might be beneficial for us, considering the Mets have the better of the 2 pitchers. On the mound for us will be the 21-year-old righty Tyrell Berry. Berry has been in our rotation for almost 3 seasons now, but we've held him off the postseason roster 2 years in a row. He's been good, but I haven't felt like he's been ready for the big moment. Well, now I think he's ready, and it's time to finally pitch him in the playoffs, and it's coming in the most important game of the year. We ultimately chose him over Robbie Jones. I feel a little bit more comfortable with Berry for now. We might use Robbie Jones in the next postseason series, but I don't think we're going to use him here because Edward Cabrera would be our pitcher for Game 5. Again, if we win, that is. So we're going to quick manage and play the big moments like we did in Game 3 as Melendez gets another hit. Of course, that's his 10th of the playoffs. Brian De La Cruz reaches with an error. And so that gives Jesus Sanchez quite the opportunity. 2 on, 2 away. Sanchez throughout his career has improved significantly against left-handed pitching as he hits this ball high and well into left field at the track, at the wall. It's caught. I thought that might have enough carry, but unfortunately, no avail. Let's see how Tyrell Berry can do in the biggest professional game of his career. He's pitched in probably close to 100 big league games at this point. Maybe not that much, but probably around 80. So he's pitched a lot, but nothing like playoff baseball. So hopefully he'll be able to produce as he's starting off pretty strong. He allows a walk to Bobby Witt Jr., though, but no hits, 2 strikeouts as we move into the second. Our offense has gotten off to a slow start. Alvarez with a single. Moncada reaches. Corey Lee with a base hit. And now there's 2 on and a big opportunity for the former Marlin, J.J. Bleday, who tops it into the infield. Woody Landry is under it, and he will make the grab. No score through 2. I wish the offense from Game 3 could have spread out the scoring a little bit, but hopefully we'll be able to continue to carry over that momentum. So far, no luck. We only have 1 hit. Make it 2 with a single by Vidal Brujan. So we'll see if we can have him score, and the answer is no. Stu grounds into a double play. Bottom 3. Bohm with a walk. Witt with a single. Witt steals second. So now we don't have a good shot at the double play anymore. And there's 2 runners in scoring position with 1 away. Brandon Lau up the middle, base hit. 1 run scores. Second will join. And the New York Mets are on the board first here in Game 4. A 2-run single for Brandon Lau. And they lead it 2-0. That'll bring up Francisco Alvarez. Checks his swing. The umpire says he went around. I think the pitch was in the strike zone anyway. Brandon Marsh now for New York, the longtime Philly. Puts it on the ground. Woody Landry will waltz over to first. Steps on the bag. Mets score 2, though, with a single by Lau, who, of course, was on that Rays team who beat us in the World Series a couple years ago. And they lead it 2-0. Time for the offense to do some damage as we move into the 4th. Ryan Stevenson has been great so far. Sanchez with a single, but he doesn't score. Tyrell Berry's going to stay in the game. He gets through the 4th inning into the 5th. The offense is still doing nothing. We're going to make a pitching change here, bringing in Joe Shearer. Tyrell Berry's day is done after 4 innings. Not a bad game from him at all. He allows 2 runs, and he hasn't gotten much run support until now. Solo homer by Woody Landry, and it's 2-1. De La Cruz with a walk. Big at bat for Sanchez, and I think we're going to hop in here. I get there's only 1 runner on first, but I feel like this is a really pivotal play. Obviously, Sanchez has been great here in the postseason, hitting .467, but he's going to pop this one up into the left field corner, and it is caught. The Marlins trail this game and this series 2-1 as we move into the bottom of the 6th now. Shearer will stay in the game. He's a guy who can pitch multiple innings at a time. I imagine we're going to have the back end of the bullpen guys warming up. Duran and Duvall both certainly should be used today as Shearer makes it through the 6th. And I think we're just going to play the rest of this game out. 3 innings to go. We're down 2-1. These 3 innings decide our season as Aurelvis Martinez flies out to right. 1, 2, 3, top of the 7th. Stevenson still in the game. He's only allowed the 1 run. As we go to the bottom half of the inning with Johan Duran on the mound for the Marlins. 2.87 ERA, .94 whip in the regular season. We haven't used him yet in the postseason. Maybe that's why we're trailing 2-1. And hopefully he'll be able to produce as he starts with J.J. Bleday and he strikes out on the high fastball. That pitch coming in at 101. Yeah, Duran is nasty. Against his former Marlin teammate, Alec Bohm, strikes out on the slider. It remains 2-1 here going into the 8th. The Marlins have 2 innings to get some offense together. Otherwise, the season is over. The Mets are going to be using the back end of the bullpen now. Michael King into the game here in the 8th, and I imagine we'll be blaring the trumpets for Edwin Diaz in the 9th. Vidal Brujan strikes out looking. That pitch was not a strike. No shot. Brutal call by Angel Hernandez behind the plate. I don't know how you can call that pitch a strike. MJ Melendez draws a walk. The Mets don't want to throw to him, and I don't blame them. He has looked like Barry Bonds in his prime on steroids throughout this series. Isaac Stu in the left, base hit. The offense is making some plays. 2 on, 1 away for the heart of the order. Woody Landry has been the best hitter in baseball for 4 months. Puts it on the ground. This could be 2. Lee's throw to second is overthrown. The run, Melendez will score, and the game is tied at 2. That should have been a double play. The inning should be over. But Corey Lee overthrows the shortstop, and the game is tied. De La Cruz swinging a miss on the slider. I don't know if that pitch would have been a strike. If not, he could have loaded the bases, which I guess would have ended the inning for the Marlins, so maybe not a bad thing. Sanchez swings out of his shoes. What was he thinking? And the Mets get out of the 8th. The Marlins score a run off of an error, though, and that defensive blunder by Corey Lee may have just saved the season as Camilo Doval comes into the game. Brandon Lau starts off with a bang. He hips it into the opposite field, and that one looks like it'll go for a double, and the Mets quickly get a runner in scoring position. All New York needs is a base hit, and they're going to get this lead right back. Francisco Alvarez, grounder to second with 1 away. Brujan makes the throw, but the runner advances to third. And now, what an opportunity for the number 6 hitter, Brandon Marsh. Into left, will it be fair? It is! Run scores! Marsh on his way to second, he's safe. And the Mets are back on top as it's now 3-2. Wow, that ball was inches away from going foul. That'll bring up Yoan Moncada now. Crushes it into left center. Is this really happening right now? 2-run homer for Moncada. The Big Apple will rise, and the Mets lead it 5-2. Just when we thought we were back after the error, folks, we are not back. We are down by 3. Andres Vina will come into the game. Camilo Doval, as good as he was in the regular season, he only allowed 7 runs all year. Not a great postseason from him as Corey Lee strikes out. Going into the 9th, the Marlins need 3 runs off of one of the best closers in baseball. Otherwise, season's over. Edwin Diaz is coming into the game. Blare the trumpets. Back end of the order due up, 6, 7, 8. That starts with Jacob Berry, an all-time postseason performer in this series, but not this year. Goes down on the 102-mile-an-hour fastball. There's 1. James Wood is up now. He's also been underwhelming here in the postseason. Pops it up. Alvarez is under it, and he will come down with it for the second out of the inning. And our season comes down to the bat of Khalil Watson, who comes into the game as a pinch hitter for Aurelvis Martinez. Watson, this season, on the line, pops it up. Under it is Bobby Witt Jr., and the reigning champions have been eliminated. The New York Mets shock the world and knock off the number 1 seeded Marlins here in the NLDS as we fall 3-1, losing game 4 by the score of 5-2. We had an opportunity in this game with the error by Corey Lee in the 8th inning to tie it up, but the Mets scored 3 in the bottom half of the inning, and we will not repeat as champions. We've made it to the NLCS 3 years in a row, but the streak ends now. And the first time we made the NLCS, back in Season 4 against the Phillies, you may remember, we beat the Atlanta Braves in the NLDS, and the Braves were kind of like us. They were the team to beat. They had the best record in the National League. And ever since then, I feel like the Braves haven't been the same. So hopefully, we don't go down a similar path. Tyrell Berry was solid in his postseason debut. The pitching was mostly good until Camilo Doval blew it. Our offense was not very good today. 5 hits, 2 runs, and one of those runs was directly off of an error by Corey Lee. And with that, the season is over. So obviously not the ending to the year that we wanted. We got the number 1 seed. We won 97 games in the regular season, but we only won 1 game in the postseason. Nonetheless, though, this was a really fun season. Obviously a little bit different. I wanted to really speed things along, and we got through the season in 3 episodes, and I really enjoyed it. MLB The Show 24 comes out in around 3.5 weeks, and I think we've got a little bit more time to do what we did again this year. So that's what we're going to do. I want to have at least 1 more season like this, maybe 2, before going into the long-term sim, which I'm planning on condensing the long-term sim. Normally that ends up being 3 episodes. This year I'm going to try to make it only 1. Let's take a look at what happens here through the rest of the postseason. The Mets are going to play the Giants in the NLCS. San Francisco ended up sweeping the Cardinals. So 2 wild cards in the NLCS. The Mets were the 4 seed and the Giants were the 6 seed. As for the American League side, it's going to be the Mariners and the Twins as they defeat the Yankees and Athletics respectively. Do the Twins go back to the World Series? The answer is no. They lose to the 2-seeded Mariners in 6. And then on the NL side, the Mets beat the Giants in 5. The Mets have only lost 2 games through the entire postseason. Obviously, we know this roster pretty well. Alec Boehm's in his 3rd consecutive World Series, looking to win ring number 2. Boehm's played in an awful lot of World Series. He was in at least 2, maybe 3 with the Phillies. So this is at least like his 5th total. As for the Mariners, I really like this roster, led by, of course, Julio Rodriguez. They've drafted well with guys like Lamar Ash and Edgar Silva. Former Marlin Nick Fortes is on this team, and he's been great for them in the postseason. He was on our team that lost the World Series to the Rays, then we traded him away, and he's been solid with the Angels and Mariners. Obviously not the player he once was, but he's been a productive starter over the last 2 seasons, although I definitely don't regret the addition of MJ Melendez, who's been fantastic. The pitching staff is really good, led by Roki Sasaki, the ace. We single-handedly kept Roki Sasaki out of the World Series at least twice. Logan Gilbert's a great number 2. Dave Carlson was once the best prospect in baseball. Former Marlin Griffin Jax's here. He was also on the team that lost to Tampa Bay. This roster's honestly loaded. I don't see how the Mets beat this team. The Mariners are stacked. The Mariners are the 4th best team in the game, while the Mets are the 7th, so fairly even. As New York wins Game 1 6-5. Mariners have a blowout win, 13-4 in Game 2. Where have I seen that score before? The Mets take Game 3 at home. The Mets take Game 4 at home. And the Mets sweep them at home. They win in 5. So the New York Mets are world champions for the first time since God knows when. Brandon Marsh wins postseason MVP in the NL. Jake McCarthy wins in the AL. And Marsh wins the World Series MVP. On one hand, it's a good thing to lose to the world champions, but on another hand, I'm petty, and I wanted the Mariners to win because I didn't want to see a division rival, especially the Mets who eliminated us, take it all the way. Next episode, we have got another offseason upcoming. I'm considering combining the offseason and the first half of Season 8. Haven't decided yet, but I guess we'll figure it out as we go. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And again, let me know what you thought of the format of this season down below in the comments. I had a lot of fun with it, and I hope you guys did as well. Peace out.